Since this is my show, I'm going to give my prediction. And I'm going to tell you what right now, I'm feeling pretty good about this game. I am. I don't think Nick Foles is going to be mishandling snaps. I don't think he's going to throw bad interceptions. I think the Eagles will run the football. I think Doug Peterson will outcoach Dan Quinn. Now, this is going to be a tough game. There's no question about it. Falcons are a good team, but the Falcons are playing their fourth game on the road out of their last 5, second straight. I've said all year that I don't like the Falcons. I've been picking against the Falcons all year. I can't change that now. I think the Eagles run it down their throat. I think it's close throughout the entire game, but I do think the Eagles squeak this one out 20-17. No touchdowns for Foles, but no interceptions. I think he plays the perfect Jeff Hostetler role. He beats Matty Ice, and the Eagles will host the NFC Championship game next Sunday. Long live the underdogs. This is the Glockcast, and it is sponsored by Gladiator Custom Mouthguards. As predicted on this show, and by the 2 Mouthpiece members who will join the show today, Jordan Bruni and Matt Hudson, the Eagles are hosting the NFC Championship game. We will break this game down from every angle possible. I got to be honest with you, I can't get enough of the underdog stuff. In many ways, Mouthpiece Sports Talk is an underdog. When I started this website on August 21st, believe me, I had no idea that on our 20th episode of the Glockcast, we would be talking about the NFC Championship game here in Philadelphia. But here we are, and just like the Eagles, we are proving people wrong and making a name for ourselves. Today, we will be joined by one of the sideline reporters for this Sunday's game, Fox's own Chris Myers. Chris is a legend in this business. He was on the Vikings sideline on Sunday, and he witnessed the most ridiculous ending to a game in the history of the league. This Sunday, he'll be covering the Eagles. He also does play-by-play for the NFL and MLB, among other stuff. So it'll be great to pick his brain. Can't wait for that. Chris Myers is an absolute legend. Another big guest here for the Glockcast. Now let's get on to the Birds. If I had to give a game ball out, I would give it out to Doug Peterson, Jim Schwartz, and the entire offensive line. The offensive line was literally incredible. Kelsey and Wisniewski were absolutely tattooing dudes. Rodney McLeod's sack was the defensive play of the game. Schwartz, perfect time to dial it up. And that's what we've been looking for all year. Jim Schwartz, Doug Peterson, absolutely fantastic. Now, Nick Foles, he got the job done. Was it beautiful? No. We said it wouldn't be pretty. Nick Foles isn't a great quarterback. We know this now. We know. We know. We're aware. But Nick Foles becomes only the 4th quarterback in the history of the NFL to start an NFC Championship game after only starting 3 games or less in a regular season. He joins Roger Staubach, Doug Williams, and, of course, my favorite example on earth, Jeff Hostetler. Foles, like Hostetler, is the underdog in the NFC Championship game. Remember, Hostetler's 1990 Giants faced Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, and the San Francisco 49ers. They were an 8-point underdog on the road, though, but they got the job done 15-13. Hopefully the Eagles could follow suit. We said it all week. The Eagles had to win ugly. They won ugly. It wasn't pretty, believe me. And that's okay. It has to be ugly. They don't have the MVP, but they're nasty. They're dogs. Guess what? They got to win ugly again this week. They have to. There's no other way for this team, but that's okay. But let's talk about Doug Peterson here for a second. How much do you love Doug right now? He completely tailored the game plan around Nick Foles' strengths, made Nick Foles look functional. By the way, another thing I was right about. Listen to episode 3 if you don't believe me. I was completely right about Doug. I was right and you were wrong. I said Doug over Zimmer, and that'll be put to the test this week. I'm still sticking with it. Michael Lombardi, how about his half-ass apology? If you didn't hear it, listen to it. He's just absolutely horrendous, though. I shouldn't even be giving him publicity. He's just absolutely disastrous. He can get lost. And speaking of people that were wrong, Nick Wright, moron. Bomani Jones, moron. 16-time heavyweight champion Ric Flair, get lost. Hogan was better than you anyway. Woo! How's that sound? I'm strutting right now, baby, all the way to the NFC Championship game. And speaking of another moron, Mike Sealski, who said that Lincoln Financial Field has no home field advantage. Hey, Dopey, that was about as loud a stadium I've ever heard. Speaking of Mike Sealski, this is a perfect segue to bring in the head fan. This man was dressed as Rocky Balboa, for God's sake, on Saturday. Mr. Jordan Bruni.
Hey, yo, how's everybody doing? Hey, look, everybody, I hate to say it, but actually I'd love to say it. I was right about a number of things from that game last weekend. Okay, first of all, my score prediction was 16-13, okay? If the
That's
Eagles,
pretty damn good.
If the Eagles made that extra point, it would have been 16 points, okay? I also brought up a lot of stuff about how the Eagles cannot play from behind, from big deficits. You can't put Nick Foles on the field when he's down by 10 points or 13 points. So, I guess, obviously, they done their part in the first half.
But they did come back in that game.
They did come back, but it wasn't from a big deficit. Okay, when I said deficit, I meant like
no, I understand what you mean.
10 to 13 to 17
but
points.
It surprised me a little bit that they did make that. They made a pretty furious comeback. It was 3-0, and then they were down 10-6. I got to be honest. When it was 10-6, I was kind of like, oh, boy.
Well, this is the beautiful thing about Dougie P. Okay, you saw this was the great thing about him being our coach, that he was a former quarterback, because he revamped, as I said last week, he revamped the whole offense for Nick Foles. And from quarterback to quarterback, I feel like it was easier for him to adjust that for Nick Foles. Okay? He designed a lot of short plays. You didn't see Nick Foles throwing a ball above 20 yards.
Apparently Chris Collinsworth, we were both at the game, but apparently Chris Collinsworth was RPO. But he kind of is right. Those run-pass options were effective, and they were the Eagles' most lethal weapon on Saturday.
And the Eagles did what everybody wanted them to do. They ran the ball. Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount, they also gave the ball to Nelson Aguilar on some plays that I absolutely loved, which I hope they can throw in those plays.
That play was the best. That was Doug's best call of his career. That inside handoff, I had me literally jumping up and down. That was his best call.
Nelson Aguilar has been like one of my favorite players this year.
What a revelation is Aguilar, dude. Seriously,
hey,
who would have thought that last year?
I stuck by him. I knew it was a mental thing last year. That's why I stuck by him while people were like asking to get him cut, take a money loss, whatever. I stuck by this guy.
That's kudos to Doug Peterson, too, though.
Yeah, Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson has done his job.
Doug Peterson has been absolutely fantastic.
I don't even want to call him Doug Peterson anymore. I want to call him Coach of the Year. That's what I want to call him.
He is the Coach of the Year, and it's a joke.
I'll call him the Coach of the Year. We'll call him Coy. Not even call him Doug Peterson anymore. That Sean McVay stuff's out the window. I don't really have that much respect for Zimmer. He coached up a great Vikings team this year, but he ain't no Peterson.
Even when he came back in the locker room, he's like, "We ain't done yet." I was like, "Oh man, I am so jacked up right now." And he was giving it back to the media.
I was just about to say that,
which made me feel better. He was giving it back to him. He said, "None of you all believe in us. Hey, Doug, we believe you right here on the Glockcast.
Yep.
We are your boys. We got your back."
I'll go in. He said, "I'll go in to fight for any of those guys in the locker room. I got their back." Because he believes in those guys.
His confidence level is so different than a year ago. I love it, and he deserves it. He's had this team ready to play every game this season. He outcoached Dan Quinn like we said he would, and I think this guy could be coaching. I think he's going to be coaching in the Super Bowl. So who would have thought that? I don't think anybody a year ago.
I agree with that. The whole media was against us. Only guy that wasn't against us, who I actually like now, is Kyle Brandt from Good Morning Football on NFL Network. Only guy that had our back.
I got it, but I don't know. I think he's playing to the crowd a little bit. Like they had to pick one of them.
Man,
they had to pick one of them to be the Philly guy.
No,
dude.
The guy went in with a
role.
The guy went in with the whole sheet of the guy
he's
went
playing
in.
a role.
He doesn't have any reason to like us.
Stop buying. Because they have 4 people on the show.
The guy played football at quarterback at Princeton, okay?
And they have 4
You don't got much love for Philly. When you're playing for Princeton, you get your ass kicked when you're playing at Penn.
They have 4 people on a show. One of them had to be the Philly guy. It had to be him.
No one was.
Schrager is a New York guy. The girl's not going to be it. And Nate Burleson has to stay unbiased.
Yes, but no one was completely trashing the Eagles on that show.
You're so gullible.
I'm not.
He's just playing it up, which is cool. I don't mind that he's playing up. I don't mind that. I like it. But come on.
No.
He doesn't really give a rat's ass about the Eagles.
I completely disagree with that.
Okay, well, it's so scripted, but whatever. It doesn't matter. I kind of like it. I'm not going to say I don't like it. Now, Now, what do you think about the underdogs?
Being the underdog for this game is
disrespectful, right?
It's disrespectful. Once again, it's kind of deserved. As I said this last week, I hate it. I mean, I think we've earned our stripes this year, but with the loss of Carson Wentz puts some of our I know a lot of the viewers' confidence in question. So
now, see, I'm kind of I don't think the Eagles deserve it, to be honest with you. I'm going to give you a group here: Keenum, Latavius Murray, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, or Nick Foles, Jay Ajayi, Alshon Jeffrey, and Zach Ertz. Who would you take?
I would take those Eagles guys.
Absolutely. So
that's not even me being a homer. That's
common sense.
That's common sense. So if you don't agree with that, you can get your head checked.
If that's common sense, then why are the Eagles a 3-point underdog? The defenses are a wash. I'm sorry to break that news to you.
Well, I do think Minnesota's secondary has a step above the Eagles' secondary. But I think
they're banged up.
Over the last couple weeks, I think the Eagles' secondary has sort of rallied together and played a little bit differently than they played earlier in the season.
I think the Eagles' secondary's been lights out, to be honest with you. They just held Julio Jones out of the end zone. Sanu was essentially a non-factor. And a guy, I got to give you credit where credit's due. A guy you brought up last week and said you would have your eye on had one hell of a game. Yeah. Jalen Mills.
Jalen Mills. He came through at the end. Obviously, he was on Julio Jones like glue. So he did his job right there.
I mean, he got a little lucky at the end that Jones slipped, but he still was in the right position.
Darby was a little bit sloppy in the first half. He had his hands on and the Eagles defense. I told you this last night. I said the Eagles had 3 opportunities where the ball landed in their hands for an interception. I thought the Eagles were actually going to – I thought the way that the Eagles were going to score in this past game was getting Nick Foles good field position by forcing a turnover, which they didn't even do. They drove the ball down like 80 yards down the field on offense with no help of good field position.
Well, now they have it in the bank because this is going to be the week that they cause the turnover and put their offense in a position to score.
Yeah, well, you're putting – the defense is –
there's no way they're going 2 games without forcing the turnover.
The defense has an easier task this week. You got Keenum versus – Matt Ryan, who the former MVP. You got Julio Jones against what's the guy's name?
Thielen.
Thielen.
I
think the defense they'll be able to put a lot more pressure on Keenum, whose QB rating last game was horrible when he was in trouble in the pocket.
That's good. I'm glad you're right in my wheelhouse now. There's a couple things that stick out to me. I want to go back to that Carolina Panthers game. Vikings-Panthers, Keenum threw 2 picks in that game. He was sacked 6 times. That's the effort the Eagles defense needs on Sunday. Also in that game, Jonathan Stewart, 16 carries, 103 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The Panthers as a team rushed for over 200 yards. I know Cam had 70 of those yards, but still, Jonathan Stewart absolutely sucks. 16 carries, 103 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Granted, Keenum, 2 picks, set the offense up, short field, they score. That's what the Eagles need to do. And I think the Vikings defense, if they have a bugaboo, it's running backs and tight ends. A game against Washington, it was 38-30. Vernon Davis, 7 catches, 76 yards. That's old man Vernon Davis. Zach Ertz should be able to have a field day. Devontae Freeman, 12 carries, 74 yards. Now, obviously Minnesota held the Atlanta Falcons in check, but I mean 12 carries, 74 yards. Jeez. And Josh Hill, of all people, whoever he is, the tight end for the Saints, 3 catches, 54 yards, and Kamara, 4 catches, 62 yards, and a touchdown. I know Kamara is a special talent, but Jay Ajayi is a special talent. If he gets loose, he looked pretty good in the screen game. I think that's what matchup the Eagles could exploit this week.
I completely agree there. I think our run defense is going to shut down Murray. You can always go into every game, always knowing that their offense isn't going to be able to run the ball. And Eagles have showed us that all season.
Nah, Latavius Murray runs with like sandbags on his legs.
Yeah, he
stinks. Come on,
he's a powerful runner, but I don't think he's going to have much success.
I'm not interested in him in the slightest.
No, I completely agree with that.
And last year, the Eagles beat the Vikings 21-10. In that game, Wentz was horrendous. 16-28, only 138 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But the Eagles' defense went nuts. Sacked Bradford a million times. Forced a few bad turnovers. Now these two teams are completely different.
They're not completely different. The depth chart for the most part is almost the same.
Norv Turner was the Vikings offensive coordinator back then.
The offensive line has changed up a little
Offensive
bit
line's
for
a lot
the
better.
Minnesota Vikings.
A lot better.
Personally, and I don't know if I'm crazy saying this, but I think Sam Bradford is better than Case Keenum.
Nah, not right now. I don't think.
I do
But imagine
think
if
that.
Keenum got hurt and Bradford came in. But anyway,
I would love that. I don't care if either of those guys
the
come
key
in.
thing I said in that, though, was Wentz, 16-28, only 138 yards and 2 interceptions. The Eagles win 21-10. That's what kind of game the Eagles need this Sunday.
Yeah. And it's funny that actually that game last year was the game I dressed like Rocky for also. I was hyping up the crowd for that game. That was pretty fun.
All right. One quick thing, dog masks. Your thoughts?
I am not with the dog masks. I think, what Lane Johnson did after the game, that was funny and everything, and we're the underdogs. Philadelphia does what it typically does. When they see players do something during a game or before a game or after a game, they run with it. And now, Amazon sold out of dog masks now, and everybody's going to wear them in the game.
I think it's hilarious, though.
I think I'm going to remind you another fan base that wears dog masks in the stadium, and that's the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I think it sets a bad precedent.
You don't want to be like the Cleveland Browns.
I don't think anybody on earth wants to be like the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, but I think the city has embraced this underdog thing, and it's I've embraced it completely. I love it.
I think it's great, but
no
I
respect,
think,
as usual. Typical Philadelphia never gets respect.
Look, the Eagles should be in the NFC Championship. The Vikings shouldn't be here. The Saints should be here.
Yeah, you're
the
right.
The Vikings
You couldn't
are here.
Be more right.
I understand that the Eagles had a that the Falcons were on the 2-yard line and they were almost going to throw it at Julio Jones to win the game. Okay, but the Saints pretty much had that game wrapped up, and one of the guys blew coverage and. He grabbed the ball and ran it in. It was such a last-second thing when the time clock had run out. The Saints should be here, not the Vikings.
Well, I'm glad you said that because we have a special guest, another special guest here for the Glockcast. On the line with us is the man that will be on the sidelines during the Fox broadcast. He will be on the Eagles sideline this week, the great Chris Myers. Chris, thank you for joining the show.
My pleasure. Look forward to a championship game in Philadelphia. Should be a lot of fun.
Yes, the first one since 2004. We're looking forward to it as well. Before we get into Sunday's NFC Championship game, let's go back to this past Sunday. You were on the sidelines. Take us through what was going through your mind when Stephon Diggs is running down the sidelines for a touchdown and the range of emotions in that stadium.
Yeah, well, first of all, the stadium was off the charts. I mean, and I've been on the field for a lot of big playoff games in Seattle, championship games in New Orleans, and this is the loudest NFL venue I've ever experienced. And my view is, or my job, and it's not about me as a reporter, it's about getting the interview once the game ends. So I'm thinking it went from, okay, Vikings have this, to maybe they don't, to, oh, yeah, they have the lead, so now the Saints have it. And there was a feeling, not that they gave up, but everybody, a number had their heads down on the sideline where I was on that Vikings sideline. And then when the play clicked, and I'm standing a few yards away on that, just out of bounds where Diggs caught the ball, and I couldn't believe, number one, that he was able to catch it, and then I'm thinking, did he get out of bounds? I looked, the clock shows 0. I had kind of an awkward view of where Keenum threw the ball from, but he runs into the end zone, and the place goes crazy, so you think the game's over, and it was, just still needed one more snap, so I try to rush with our camera crew to locate Keenum, the hero of the moment, game of his life, throw of his life, and to come back and getting to him, and then I actually had to tell him, hey, it's not over, there's one more snap, and then once we got to him live and interviewed Stephon Diggs for the Fox post-game show, we were all still stunned, and their interviews, I can't tell you what they could hardly describe what had just happened or what they just experienced, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime, no matter who you're rooting for, and feel bad for Saints and Saints fans, but for a finish like that in a game, in a postseason game to advance, and a Viking team obviously that's had their share of bad luck in the postseason and bad breaks go their way. It was really special to be a part of it. It brings out, whether you're a reporter or a player, it brings out the kid in you, the fan in you. And hopefully people had that feeling watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And even from a Philadelphia standpoint, we're watching the game thinking, okay, who are the Eagles going to play? And even we're thinking, okay, it's Drew Brees, it's the Saints. But just an amazing moment, and you did a fantastic job capturing that moment for the fans. Now, you've been around sports for a long time, and you've been around this Vikings team. After such a historic ending and an emotional victory, how tough will it be for Minnesota to come back, do it again on Sunday on the road in Philly?
Well, I think it's tough Yeah, for both teams, because the Eagles too had a kind of a dramatic win at home. Obviously, they don't have to travel, so they're going to have the comforts of their own building. But it's been my experience, and I know that it's very much a game of momentum. But I don't think that momentum necessarily, especially in the playoffs, carries over to the next week. This is a totally different opponent, a different atmosphere. I mean, Minnesota rode that whole the Super Bowls in our stadium. Let's win this and get there. They were hoping for a chance to host two games before the Super Bowl. So, I mean, these are two very well-coached teams. And so I think how the Eagles and how the Vikings won last weekend, I really don't think that is going to carry over and affect this game. And I know people are around the league and even casual football fans are saying, well, look at these quarterbacks. You know, they're career backups in Foles and Keenan. But I think that's a credit to the head coaches in Doug Peterson and Mike Zimmer, that they were able, you know, to continue with their teams, and whether it's been defense or play calling, however they did it, without without their star quarterback. And so I think that's what's intriguing about this. It's the great neutralizer. So where is the difference in this game? I think that's what it'll be fun to watch there on Sunday night.
And to stem off that, what is the storyline for Fox this week? Is it the quarterback matchup, or is it the defenses?
Well, you know, a storyline, normally you would go for the biggest name, right? The headliner, whether it's if it's Aaron Rodgers against Drew Brees, as you were just talking about, it almost was Drew Brees, and that would have been Brees against the Eagle defense. I think the headline is these are quarterbacks that were not expected to be here. The teams are very good teams, and they're very well coached. So is it which quarterback steps up, or is it which quarterback fouls up? Is it who else is the hero? And I think the Vikings defense, while statistically the best in the league this year in terms of points allowed, I think the Eagle defense is right there with them. In Jacksonville and New England, there's a reason these teams are the Final Four. But if you look at the other factors, I mean, the Eagle running game, I like the depth of that, maybe over Minnesota's. I think the depth of the Eagles receivers and tight ends over what Minnesota has. So that's where I'm surprised that odds makers, and maybe they're playing off the emotion of that finish, that they've made the Vikings a slight favorite. This should be a picking game at the very least.
I totally agree with you. I think a pick would this is about as even as a matchup as it comes. I mean, you basically have two backup quarterbacks, and you know about the dog masks that you're going to be seeing on Sunday Sunday evening.
Yeah, and it's great that they sold out of those. And look, we're all human beings and have a heart rate and a heartbeat, and a reaction, emotion carries us. And if you've got a group of 50-plus guys on the Eagles that are a number one seed that are being disrespected to the point, however they want to phrase it, a lot of teams say, hey, they counted us out, or, they don't respect us. But the reality, I felt bad from it, watching the Eagles against Atlanta in the game that they won to get them here. And I know Doug Peterson talked about that, and I sense that in this game, that it will be at least an emotional factor going in, and then you have to make the plays. And certainly the Eagles have the kinds of defensive players to make those plays. And on offense, the receivers need to be reliable, and Ajayi and Blunt need to do their job and pound their way behind what I think is a very good offensive line.
Yes, and they dominated the game on Saturday, and that's a reason why the Eagles are playing in the NFC Championship game. Chris, I'll get you out of here on this one. Case Keenum has started 14 games. We've talked about it. While Foles is only the fourth quarterback in history to start an NFC Championship game after starting 3 regular season games or less, which quarterback has the edge in your opinion?
Well, I would lead towards Foles in the sense that, number one, he's at home, playing at home, and number two, that his head coach is the offensive-minded Peterson with the plays, calling the plays, helping to involve that closer bond, whereas Mike Zimmer, who's calling the defensive plays, and he's a defensive-minded coach, and I know Pat Shermer is his offensive coordinator, but I had asked Zimmer about how often in the flow of the game he talks to his quarterback, and he said not much. There's just a few times where he'll go over there. So if you're splitting hairs, that's where I think the slight edge might go to Nick is size, maybe arm strength, maybe a little bit, but it's who handles the pressure. And I will say they're both not only in similar situations in that they were backups thrust into this position, but similar in terms of the kinds of careers they've had, where there may have been a brief opportunity to be a starter. Now, I know Nick Foles has been before, and I think that's another little bit of an advantage that he'll carry with him into this game. But really, I don't think this game will be decided by Keenum or Foles, that that one of them is going to outplay the other. I think they'll neutralize each other. It's where else? Is there somebody on defense? Is it one of the kickers, who I think are also very similar in terms of handling pressure situations and strong legs? And that's, again, where I do think in this situation, being told you're an underdog playing at home in a primetime championship game, I think that the Eagle crowd, just like Minnesota used their crowd, and that is a factor, I think that could tip the scales.
Chris, I totally agree with you, and thank you so much for joining the show. We'll look for you on the sidelines on Sunday, and if you need a place to go before the game, we'll be at H4. All right, Chris?
All right, well, I always have a good time when I go to Philadelphia, no matter what I've covered, so I look forward to this one. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And that's the great Chris Myers, and he is brought to you by Gladiator Custom Mouthguards. Gladiator Custom Mouthguards is the proud sponsor of Mouthpiece Sports Talk. With a custom mouthguard, you can create an identity that's all your own. From color, logo, and number, you can build your mouthguard for your game face. Visit gladiatorguards.com today and complete your game face with a Gladiator Custom Mouthguard. Man, Chris Myers checking in. The Glockcast is blowing up. Better and better each week.
We'll never forget that interview. I mean, after that game, wow, what a place to be.
I know. Dude, he did a great job chasing down Diggs and getting those interviews. You can imagine what he was thinking. Okay, this game's over. Saints are going. I got to,
You got to calm down.
Because he's interviewing the Vikings.
You got to calm down Diggs after probably the best play he's ever going to make in his entire life.
Yeah, well, think about his mindset. He's going from, okay, Saints won. I got to interview these guys. They just a heartbreaking loss. They blew a 17-0 lead. That's going through his mind. Then, boom, Diggs touchdown. Oh, my gosh, I got to chase these guys down and, secure an interview. So just a crazy range of emotions.
Only mistake you made, you should send the D5 tailgate if you wanted to see a real tailgate go down.
H4 is where it's at this week, dude. H4 was lit last week. Travis Kelce was in the house. Who did you guys have? The trash man from Delaware County? H4, everybody.
That guy's name's Sean, and I don't actually know where that guy tailgates. That guy's actually from your town, by the way.
Yeah, he might be. But you know what? On the line, I got another guest. And he's the man that loved the Carolina Panthers. I didn't quite see them play this past week. And he's a man that loves himself some Pittsburgh Steelers and hates Blake Bortles. But you know what's funny? I saw the Jaguars beat the piss out of the Steelers this past week, and he's been arguing with me all year. So here to defend himself is the great Matt Hudson. What's up, Matt?
What's going on? Not much to say about that. I'm still shocked about that Jaguars
How
game.
about my Jacksonville Jaguars?
Completely shocked.
Wow.
Completely shocked. You were right. I was wrong. I'll admit it.
Man, people are going to really have to start admitting that Glock's right and they're wrong. It's a theme here, and I like it, and I want it to keep going. So, Matt, I want to hear how you're feeling about the Eagles game on Sunday before we get in the AFC Championship game. How you feeling?
I'm excited. I'm nervous. I think it's going to be a dogfight. We're going to have to win ugly again. It's going to be a dogfight. I'll save my score for the prediction article, but it's going to be a good one.
Now, I'm going to give you the same question I gave Jordan earlier on the show. Keenum, Thielen, Latavius Murray, and Kyle Rudolph, or Foles, Jeffrey, Ajayi, and Ertz?
I'd go with the Eagles.
Absolutely, right? So what's the problem here? Why are the Eagles the underdog in your opinion?
Disrespect. It's absolute disrespect, and I think it comes down to Nick Foles. It's strictly because people think Foles is absolutely terrible, and he's not. He's a decent quarterback, and that's all we need him to be because we have the home field advantage and we have the defense.
I think he just needs to be functional. Like I've been saying, they have to win ugly. We've pretty much been in agreement with that. I mean, he doesn't have to be great. He just has to be good enough, especially in this game.
Agreed. He absolutely has to limit the turnovers. He actually has to have no turnovers. And if he does that, does what he did last week, the Eagles will win the game.
Now, give me one player on Minnesota that scares the shit out of you.
The man who caught the 61-yarder to end the game, Diggs. He's fast, and you can't – it's going to be real hard to cover him.
Yeah.
Real hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be
You
easier.
know what?
It's
We
going to be easier to
covered
cover
Julio.
him than it's going to be easier to cover him than Julio Jones.
Yeah, I agree completely. But Julio did have somewhat of a field day, and that ball did go right through his hands. Now, if we didn't fumble that punt and have another turnover, I don't even think the Falcons have any business scoring. But it's still going to be just as hard to cover Diggs.
So how about a player on the Eagles that needs to step up from your viewpoint?
I'm going with Ajayi. I think he started to last week. He bounced back from the fumble. I think we got to continue to feed him the ball. and run on that defense a little bit so it can open up a few play actions for Foles.
I agree with you. I think Ajayi needs to have a big game this week, hold on to the ball. Now, you've had pretty much the entire year, you had the Eagles and Patriots 1 and 2. They're both still here in the playoffs. Let's move to the AFC Championship game. What are you looking for? Who do you think wins and why?
I'll tell you what, like I said, Jacksonville proved me wrong. There is a 0% chance, 0% chance that Blake Bortles goes into Foxborough and beats the GOAT. He's not beating Tom Brady. 0% chance.
I don't know if it's 0, dude. Jacksonville can flat out get after the quarterback. You've doubted them last week. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to win, but I'm not putting it at 0.
I'll tell you what, if that dinosaur Roethlisberger can throw 469 yards and 5 touchdowns against them, what is Tom Brady going to do?
Well, he did that. He did a majority of that in the second half, too. Pittsburgh typically is a team that comes from behind. They'll play like crap in the first half, and then they'll start playing football in the second half. Patriots play football pretty much most 4 quarters.
No, last I checked, though, here, I'm going to look through my files. I told both of you that Pittsburgh sucks, and I was right. I wouldn't count Jacksonville out yet. That's just me.
Well, you said that back when Pittsburgh had their starting linebacker in. I think that makes a big, huge difference.
Well, they're out. They're out. All right, well, listen, Matt, I got your prediction article coming up, and I need a little more fire, so I need you to light this podcast up with an Eagles chant. We're going to get Jordan's to end, but I want to hear one from you right now.
Let's do it, baby. E-A-G-L-E-S.
All right, that's Matty Hudson. Look out for the prediction article Friday. Every Mouthpiece contributor will give their prediction, just like last week, Jordan included. Matt, Rob, Dunphy, Joe Pop, look out for it. So Matt took a beating. Carolina's not playing. Steelers are out, just like I told both of you. Steelers are out.
Well, the thing this crap is going on with the Jaguars and Patriots game now about how Ramsey's obviously starting up a bunch of shit about beating them in this game, then going to the Super Bowl and winning. I think that's all well and fine. I think that's the way it should be, a competitive fight going into the game. But this is just premeditated to not end well for them. And
possibly.
I could just see it. I see all this crap happening. I'm like, look, you're coaching against Belichick. Like, he's the best coach ever. He's going to dismantle the Jaguars.
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
Everybody's going to come back down to earth when they see that game Sunday, okay?
We'll see. Who would you rather play, though?
I would rather play the Jaguars 100%. Why would I want to play the best quarterback and best coach?
I'm just going to play obviously, the answer is the Jaguars, but I'm going to play devil's advocate with you. When the Phillies won the World Series and they beat Tampa, and Tampa beat Boston, it's like, oh, you beat the Rays. You didn't beat the Yankees. Wouldn't you want to beat the Patriots if you're the Eagles? As the head Eagles fan, wouldn't you want to have that dignity?
No, I want a Super Bowl ring. I don't care who we beat. What are people going to say when we get a Super Bowl ring? Oh, well, you just beat the Jaguars. It doesn't mean anything. No, we got a Super Bowl ring. I don't want to hear the crap anymore. Those days are done. We got a Super Bowl ring, okay?
All right. Well, I agree with you. Dude, I'd love to play
who we beat. I don't care.
The NFL is going to be in a lot of trouble. Not that I care. But the NFL is going to be in a lot of trouble if it's Foles and Bortles in -20 Minnesota.
Not necessarily. Philadelphia's a big
Philadelphia
sports
represents, but
it's a big sports market. Yeah, with the Jaguars, you're in trouble.
They're lucky Justin Timberlake.
I mean, you get a Boston sports market with a Philly sports market. You're going to have huge ratings.
Even if it's Bortles Keenum, the NFL's in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny because they hate New England so much, the NFL and ESPN, but they need the Patriots now more than they've ever needed.
I agree.
So,
but
that's
then
funny.
again,
funny how things work like that.
A lot of people might be curious to see this lousy QB matchup.
No. I would be as long as his name's Nick Foles. So, all right. Well, we gave out our AFC Championship game picks. Now it's time. It's time for my prediction because this is my show. I'm going to make my prediction. I said last week I thought Doug Peterson would outcoach Dan Quinn. I think he's going to outcoach Mike Zimmer this week. I think Jim Schwartz will outcoach Pat Shurmur. I think Pat Shurmur's head is in New York. This is going to be an ugly game, folks. The Eagles just can't win pretty. They can't. There's no other option. I think they're going to be able to get Jay Ajayi involved. I think Zach Ertz will play a big role. As long as Foles doesn't turn over the ball multiple times, the Eagles will be just fine on offense. I think the Eagles will force a turnover this week. They didn't force one last week. I think they will force one this week. Give the offense a short field and a chance to score on a tough Vikings defense. I don't think there's going to be much scoring in this one. I'm going to go with the Eagles, 20-10. I think they have the lead throughout the game, and they shut Case Keenum down, multiple interceptions, and the Eagles, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Eagles will go to the Super Bowl, and we will talk about it on the Glockcast next week. Jordan, what do you think about that?
I like your score. The Eagles have to kick up their offense in like 5 more gears. They're going against the number 1 defense. They can't afford to be making mistakes. They can't afford to be fumbling on the goal line. You can't have, misread plays, and they have to be almost perfect. Make sure Nick Foles gets his confidence up in the first quarter rather than the second half of the second quarter. A lot of plays fell into our hands, obviously, with the throw to the knee, and it bounced off and ended up a 35-yard play for us. We can't afford to have that. And
yeah, of course, he can't have. He's not going to be able to get away with those throws like last week.
No,
there's no going to be bouncing off knee, catch to Torrey Smith.
But the Vikings defense, they're a smart defense as much as they give them
this
credit.
is going to be a flat out dogfight. This is going to be nasty.
The Vikings defense knows we're going to be running screen passes and short play action passes.
Okay, and that's why
they know we're going to run the ball too.
Mike Zimmer and out-coach Pat Shurmur. Peterson's 1-0 against Zimmer. I believe he'll be 2-0. The Eagles have to be smart. They have to clean up the mistakes. We've talked about it 100 times. Yeah, whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win this game. I think it's not rocket science here. If the Eagles turn the ball over 3 times, they're going to lose. There's no doubt about it. But I think the Eagles will force turnovers this week. I think they will be smarter. Special teams may play a role in this game. Kenyon Barner was on this show. I love him, but he's got to be better. He's got to be better. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. He when he was calling for the punt when Brayman accidentally hit the ball, he was calling for poison.
I agree, but you got to make a decision. This is not the time. This is the NFC Championship game. No screw ups. There's no do overs.
You can't afford those mistakes. The thing that's unique about the Eagles, and I said this actually a couple shows ago, versus what Minnesota has and what the Eagles have. Eagles have a lot of Super Bowl presence in their locker room. They got everybody from Jenkins, Torrey Smith, Chris Long. These guys have played in the game before, and I think having played in those games, it kind of builds your motivation, and you know what you want to get back to. I think just with that presence in that locker room versus Minnesota, well, I don't even know if Minnesota has even any Super Bowl players on their squad.
You've been saying that for a while, and we'll see if it plays a role. Chris Long, LeGarrette Blount. Now, I think the Eagles are going to get this done. I can't believe I'm saying this on my podcast that started August 21st. The Eagles are going to go to the Super Bowl. That's what I believe. I do not think Minnesota is going to come into Lincoln Financial Field and beat the Eagles. I don't. I've thought about it every which way, and I just believe the Eagles are going to win the game.
The Link is one of the toughest places in the league to play.
And it's not going to be fun for Case Keenum. Hopefully, we will be back here next week with a Super Bowl edition of the Glockcast. Be sure to check out our Q&A with Jim Suhan from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. That will be out Thursday, Friday, our special NFC Championship game preview article with every Mouthpiece contributor. This is a true underdog story. The Eagles and Mouthpiece, we are in this together. We have been with you every step of the way. Join the revolution. Thanks again, Jordan. Thank you, Matt. And a special thanks to Chris Myers. We'll see him on Sunday. Glockcast. I will talk to you next week. Go Birds. E-A-G-L-E-S Eagles!